everybody! This is Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert, a NASCAR and racing podcast. And just like that, folks, the summer days, the dog days of summer keep counting down. Only a handful of races in all three of the National Series, Trucks, O'Reilly, and of course the Cup Series before the playoffs start for all three. And all of the series would be off this past weekend, getting ready before that big playoff push. The only action would be on the ARCA East side as they would run at Flat Rock Speedway. Youngsters would be ready to put their elbows up. Tristan McKee, Carson Brown, Max Reeves, Isaac Kitzmiller would all be ready to put on a show. Discussions with Dave, NASCAR history time, paint scheme of the week, predictions for Iowa, and so much content. Our first episode of the week features interview with Kyle Taraska, plus so much more on this episode of Splash of Gas. As always, we're sponsored by Magical Travel with Dave, aka Disney Dave Weichert, my father. He will be able to help you with all your Disney and Universal vacation needs. He can be reached at DisneyDaveW@Verizon.net. Please make sure you follow all the Splash of Gas social medias for midweek and on-track updates. Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are all Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert. And now for trivia question time. This episode's question is, the Cup Series would have its inaugural race at Iowa in 2024. Name the driver that won that race. Hint, he led 201 out of 350 laps that day. Answer at the end. And let's get right into it, folks, starting with discussions with Dave, part 1. The Clash is going back to Daytona. Yes, you heard that right. For, I would say, maybe the last 2 years, I have been, in protest, but saying I want the Clash back in Daytona. It was neat, and I, give kudos to NASCAR going out to LA, running it in a quarter-mile track on the LA Coliseum. But did they need to go for 3 years? Probably not. Growing up, the exhibition week, the week before the Super Bowl, 2 weeks before the Daytona 500, was the Clash. This is the first time you see the drivers back on track for the most part before the Great American Race, 2 weeks later. And to start, the Clash was not, open to every driver. I believe the parameters have changed, but it typically was you had to have a pole, won a race, or once they got into stage racing, stuff like that. But not everyone was getting into the Clash, and the Clash, how it started, the Busch Light Clash, was at Daytona. And it wasn't a points-paying race. It was prize money on the line. For the most part, these weren't the cars the guys were going to be running 2 weeks later, so everyone was really going for it, and it just made for some awesome racing. I remember the last year they hosted it at the Clash. Eric Jones won, and he was still in the Joe Gibbs 20 at that time, and the front end of his car had all bear bond on top of it. It wasn't even clean, and he went and won that race. And that's what I remember about the Clash, and I am thrilled that NASCAR has made the decision to run the Clash back at Daytona. And that kind of brings us rolling right into the next topic about the All-Star race. Dale Jr. was talking about this when talking about the Clash going back to Daytona. Of course, that does remove the Clash from Bowman Gray. But now looking at the All-Star race the last several years, it definitely doesn't have the pizzazz and drawing attention, as a fan that it used to have, years ago and years before. He used to run the All-Star race at Charlotte, They moved it to Texas for some time, and then before this past year when they ran it at Dover, it was at North Wilkesboro for the last handful of years. And of course, running the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro, a short track at Wilkesboro, which put on a heck of a show for the points-paying race they had there a couple weeks ago, running it at a throwback track like Wilkesboro just made it so much more exciting and really authentic on the NASCAR side, and, really felt going back to the roots and kind of what I believe a NASCAR race should feel like. Of course, Dover puts on a great show and is a great track. But when you have a race through 400 laps at Dover, the long runs is really where you start to run into that tire wear on that concrete surface at Dover, which then makes for such great racing there. A 250-lap All-Star race there with the format they ran, of course I was watching it, and it just didn't do it for me. And with Dover being one of my local tracks growing up in New Jersey, definitely biased, but I hope Dover gets a points-paying race on the Cup level for next year. And now that, again, leads us to the question, where do you have the 2027 NASCAR All-Star race? North Wilkesboro, all signs looking like they're going to have another points race, and the show that they put on was 10 out of 10. I don't see why they wouldn't do that for next year. With the Clash, just as we mentioned, going to Daytona, I think the slam dunk answer is to have it at Bowman Gray. First things first, NASCAR threw a lot of money in to enhancing and upgrading the short track, the Madhouse, Bowman Gray. And with an all-star race, you're not going to run the full field. Like the last couple years, this past year started with a full field and they started trimming people down as the stages went. Years before, you had the All-Star Open race, and I think it was 25 cars would then make it into the final All-Star race, which was 250 laps. Truthfully, think it's a slam dunk to have the 2027 All-Star race at Bowman Gray. And typically, the other series are paired with the All-Star race, just like we saw trucks and Xfinity run at Dover, then the All-Star race for the trucks on Sunday. Can you have a full truck series field of 34, 35 drivers on the quarter mile of Bowman Gray? That's my only concern, that NASCAR might decide to look and point the All-Star race in other locations, because I think Bowman Gray would put a great show on with a 20, 25 car field for the Cup Series, as we saw with the Clash this year. Thought it was good racing. Oh, of course, you had the snowstorm, it was pushed back all that time. But watching them bump and bang and push each other around is exciting. And I think the format and the schedule of the All-Star race would pair perfect with Bowman Gray. But NASCAR would have to decide, are we going to go to Bowman Gray for the Cup Series All-Star race and not run the Truck Series, not run the O'Reilly Series? Or this would probably never happen. But maybe have an All-Star race for the Truck Series, for O'Reilly Series. Do a cool format. Have a countdown, or have an elimination heat race, something like that. As a race fan, that would be really cool. $250,000 for the trucks, $500,000 for O'Reilly, and $1 million for the Cup Series All-Star race. Something like that. And they would probably never do this, because then it more money for these smaller teams that it's just not going to be worth it, and then not paying points like that. For some of these smaller teams, if they do that and they have a wreck, it could affect their playoff runs and the rest of the regular season for them, so probably would never happen for the lower series. But it would be a pretty cool idea as a race fan, I would have to say. Just food for thought, but maybe I'm going way out of left field on that idea. But I hope the Cup Series All-Star race is ran at Bowman Gray in 2027. Moving along in DWD, and we're looking at Hendrick Motorsports development driver Corey Day. Saw Corey win his first O'Reilly race earlier this year at Talladega. Have had Corey on the show several times. Very well spoken. If you don't know the background of Corey Day, he grew up California, dirt sprint car racing, and he'll be honest with you, he didn't, come from a family with a lot of money. He was a sprint car racer, and he, truthfully thought World of Outlaws, High Limit, something that he would get to do for, a long period of time, hopefully. And Corey then caught the eye of Kyle Larson. Go figure, right? And then that's how Corey gets into the asphalt racing, signs a development deal for Hendrick. And a lot of talk, of course, with 2027, weeks before the decision that Alex Bowman is going to come back on a one-year contract, saying, is Corey Day just going to go right and fill that seat? And in a perfect world, probably yes. But truthfully, would putting Corey Day in that seat, would it be a little bit too soon? And could that maybe affect the development? I don't think so. Of course, seat time in any division is good. But by the way it seems, Alex Bowman's going to finish his career in that 48 car in 2027. And in 2028, all signs, 99.9% sure that Corey Day is then going to replace Alex Bowman. And there's been, more talk, some people, maybe doubters a day saying, hey, maybe Hendrick just really isn't too hot on him after all. They don't want to, get him right into the or into Cup Series as soon as they could. But Jeff Gordon, Jeff Andrews, and Kyle Larson in that Team Hendrick, leadership, and Kyle Larson is, putting him in that because he was the one that found Corey Day, and there's just so much reiterated support for the young driver, and these development deals from Team Hendrick Motorsports 2025, they ran that 17 car. It wasn't a full-time entry. So they really put this full-time O'Reilly 17 entry together for the development of Corey Day. And that sponsor of the 17 car isn't, a sponsor that Corey Day brought in and brought the Hendrick Motorsports. It's HendrickCars.com. So Day just has a boatload of support right now, and obviously a lot of momentum. See what championship run Day can make. Totally a contender. Don't see why he continues that through the playoffs and continuing, and pretty much on the same note with young drivers, Tristan McKee, who has been making a splash in the ARCA series, winning out in Watkins Glen last year. Spoke to Tristan after that win. Very well spoken, very professional, impressive for a young driver, and he is very focused. Was announced, Tristan, who just turned 16 yesterday, which is the minimum age for the truck series for ovals a mile and smaller. Tristan McKee is going to make his truck series debut in Richmond, which is the next race for the truck series. He'll be running the Spire Motorsports Chevy 77. In addition to Richmond, the young McKee will run at New Hampshire, Bristol, Phoenix, and the second to last race of the year at Martinsville. As we'll get into the recap of the ARCA East race from Flat Rock, McKee was there at the end, and he typically is. Young driver with a lot of talent. And from the sample sizing that we've seen McKee on the late model side and in ARCA, he's not afraid to put his elbows out and use the front of his car for track position. Obviously, this, small race sample at the end of the year is supposed to build momentum. I'm sure he's going to run a majority of those tracks that he can as a 16 and 17-year-old with Spire at the truck level. How willing is the McKee to push it as hard as he can, and where does that lead him? Does that lead him to spinning other people out, learning at the truck level, or does that get him towards the front of these races, contending? We know that these Spire trucks can win races at this level. Really excited to watch the young McKee in Richmond and the following week race for the trucks at New Hampshire. And on the same wavelength, another development driver, this one from Richard Childress Racing, Carson Brown. Carson Brown will be making his O'Reilly Series debut with a team that has a Chevy Alliance, Jordan Anderson Racing, in the 200-lap race at the .87 mile oval of Iowa this upcoming weekend. The 18-year-old Brown has made 11 career ARCA starts, scoring 4 poles and 8 top 3 finishes. But what might be even more impressive for the young Brown is he currently leads the ASA Stars Tour Championships by an impressive 130 points, with 4 wins and 2 second-place finishes through 6 races on that tour. Big fan of that series, and some really talented drivers, young and veterans in that field. Really excited to see what Carson can do in his first O'Reilly race. I think him running at a solid team like Jordan Anderson, yes, they are a smaller team, but they can bring race-winning equipment to the track and, of course, have proven that in the past. I think this will be a great pairing for Carson to get his feet wet in that series. Now, that wraps up discussions with Dave, part 1, and brings us right into the ARCA East recap from Flat Rock Speedway. With all 3 national touring series off for the weekend, ARCA East would be the lone race of the weekend from Flat Rock Speedway. After qualifying, guy we just spoke about, Carson Brown, would be on the pole, followed by the other guy we just spoke about, Tristan McKee. The pair bring the field to green. 14 laps in, Max Reeves would get the top spot. The final restart would occur with 11 to go. And if you haven't watched the highlights of this one, you should. It was awesome. Reeves, McKee, and Isaac Kitzmiller all take turns leading. And in the end, Max Reeves would take the lead with 8 to go and hold off a charging Kitzmiller and then McKee. What an exciting finish those youngsters put on out at Flat Rock. Quick look at the predictions we made for Flat Rock. I was tossing between Carson Brown, Max Reeves, and Tristan McKee. Isaac Kitzmiller was one of the drivers I was looking out for as well. I did pick Carson Brown. He was in that 28 from Pinnacle Racing Group, and the 28 from Pinnacle Racing Group won the ARCA National Championship last year with Butterbean Queen. And with Max Reeves getting into some racing incidents, bumping and banging, I just thought Brown would get the upper hand. That did not happen. Carson Brown ends up 18th. As we know, Max Reeves finishes first and Tristan McKee second. Yellow flag, green flag for Flat Rock. Yellow flag, Carson Brown. Last 2 ARCA races for him, and race-winning equipment, and obviously getting the pole at Flat Rock. Just issues and racing incidents, ending his last two ARCA races a little bit prematurely. The young driver is 100% going to rebound, and can he get to victory lane in Iowa in the ARCA Series, which will be running before he races in the O'Reilly Series. And green flag to Isaac Kitzmiller, leading as the laps tick down. Of course, Max Reeves does get through at the end, and then Tristan McKee, Kitzmiller does finish third, but what a terrific race for the youngster. And that brings us right into discussions with Dave, part 2. Just going off the ARCA East race, is this a sneak peek into the competition we're going to see in the truck series? Of course, in ARCA for the next year to 2 years, but eventually, when are we going to see these guys clash in the trucks in O'Reilly? Think we're just seeing a little bit of sneak peek of this on the ARCA East side. Believe we're going to see all three of these guys run the ARCA race at Iowa this upcoming Friday night. That should be an exciting one too. But of course, at the short track of Flat Rock and with all the lap traffic, really just was amplified. And that, of course, created for some exciting racing. But all three of these guys, Max Reeves, Tristan McKee, Carson Brown, and each of these guys have won at the ARCA level before. And just as we mentioned with Iowa, expect one of these three to nab the win. And of course, each of these drivers with the partnerships that they do have, Carson Brown with RCR, Max Reeves with Joe Gibbs, Tristan McKee with Spire Motorsports. These guys are going to get shots in the Truck Series in O'Reilly and really can't wait for that. And these guys are going to be competing for each other for wins. And we're just starting to see that, of course, at the ARCA level right now. Transitioning right to the next topic, and that's the lineup for Richard Childress Racing for 2027 Cup Series and O'Reilly. As we know, Austin Hill right now is filling in for the late Kyle Busch that should have been running the full Cup Series schedule. Austin Dillon is the other driver who is driving their 3 entry. I shouldn't say other driver. He's the grandson of Richard Childress, of course, and Daytona 500 champ. For this year, on their O'Reilly side is, of course, Austin Hill. Now, since the passing of Kyle, he is running full-time in both series. NASCAR, of course, letting Hill and RCR do this with the situation. But for 2027, that isn't going to happen. And the second entry, the number 2 car for RCR at the O'Reilly level, is last year's O'Reilly's champ, Jesse Love. As we know, Jesse is going to be leaving RCR, jumping to the Cup Series, driving the 21 for Wood Brothers. And as we were just saying, Austin Hill isn't going to run O'Reilly and the Cup Series schedule. So how do the open seats get filled? We have heard a lot of rumors that Chandler Smith would be taking the number 2 seat from Jesse Love as Love jumps into the Cup Series. Chandler competing for a championship right now for Front Row Motorsports on the truck level. Smith has announced he is not going to be returning to Front Row at the end of this season. All signs point that Chandler would be driving the number 2 in the O'Reilly Series. And at first, in regards to Austin Hill driving the 33, their second entry at the Cup level for RCR, totally understand Austin Hill filling in after the passing of Kyle right away so they can keep that entry going, of course. I did not think for next year at first that maybe that was the best option for RCR. Thinking about it, seeing the results for several weeks, I think that RCR should keep Austin Hill running their 33 in the Cup level. Austin, as we know, is a veteran driver in the sport. I just think building a notebook and more seat time in the Cup Series is going to give Austin more opportunities to get in the top 10, maybe even compete for one of these races. I think if you keep the pedal on the gas for that situation, I think the results are only going to get better. Now, switching back to the O'Reilly side of things, as just mentioned, Chandler Smith looks like he would fill the number 2 seed. And as we were just talking, I think Austin Hill stays in the 33 at the Cup level. So that means there's one more seat available on the O'Reilly side. And we already know Carson Brown has a development deal with RCR. Carson is making his O'Reilly debut with Team Chevy partner Jordan Anderson Racing. And some might say that Carson needs more time at the ARCA level. Carson is leading the ASA All-Star Championship standings, which is a top super late model series, which I've talked about and interviewed drivers before. I think you get Carson Brown in that O'Reilly car for RCR. I think Chandler Smith, a veteran driver in his own right, paired with a rookie driver coming into the series, Carson Brown. You got Austin Hill in their corner, Austin Dillon, of course. I think that's what the lineup will be for 2027. Moving into our last topic on discussions for Dave for this episode, I heard this statement the other day going through my NASCAR rigmarole, and it was Trackhouse Racing. Are they becoming a farm team for Hendrick Motorsports? And when I first saw that, I said, that's preposterous. Trackhouse, they won the Coca-Cola 600 in 2025 with Ross Chastain. We've seen them win other races, when Daniel Suarez was still with them, and of course with Ross, and now SVG lighting the lamp with them in the Cup Series and just killing it on the road courses, as we know. And Connor Zilic, rookie full-time with them this season, and isn't going the best, as we know, for Connor, but he's a rookie. He's figuring it out. He won, over 10, 11 races last year on the O'Reilly side of things. And of course, Trackhouse is showing their strength with the road course wins through SVG. And of course, Zilic is a rookie. But if you look at the oval finishes for Shane, for Ross, and Shane's a tough one to judge just with him getting more seat time and him getting more comfortable with the ovals. But with Ross and just kind of as an organization as a whole, they have dipped down a little bit in results compared to where they were, 2-3 years ago, right? The Hale Mellon at Martinsville, Ross Chastain is racing for a championship. And then you think at the business side of things, sponsorships, partnerships, and bottom line, money plays a big role in performance in NASCAR. And yes, you need to, as I said, perform and execute, even if you have the money, but having the resources doesn't hurt, right? And I am not an expert on the business side of NASCAR and don't really have an insight to the specifics, day-to-days, and sponsorship deals that Trackhouse has. But say if that's the case, say if they're bringing in less money from the sponsorships, being paired with Team Hendrick, having a deal with them, developing drivers, is not a bad thing. Longevity in the sport, that could really help them. And yes, of course, Trackhouse wants to be winning races, and they are winning races. Just they're on road courses, but that's still not the takeaway. It's still a win at the NASCAR Cup level, of course. And Shane is going to be battling to get into chase, hopefully for a championship. So if that option is really on the table for Trackhouse, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But what I think honestly is going to happen, I think Trackhouse is going to get through this slump. I don't see them, bowing down. I don't think that's the trajectory or the attitude of the people that are running Front Row Motorsports. They want to be competing for championships and doing that with their own guys, right? Last comment on this, I would not be surprised if they come up with a deal in regards to Connor Zilisch moving to Hendrick Motorsports. Connor Zilisch's contract with Trackhouse ends after next year's season, and he is going to be the jewel of a lot of teams. Hendrick, Joe Gibbs is going to want to sign him. I'm assuming he stays with, Team Chevy, the Chevy family, and that he goes to Hendrick Motorsports. Does Trackhouse try to take advantage of the commodity that they have and do a trade? We've seen that before in the sport. Or is it maybe more resource-based with Hendrick? We'll see. Or maybe at the end of 2027, contract's over, he doesn't re-sign, he goes to Hendrick. We'll see how things play out. Of course, there's more than over a year until we get to that point, but still thinking about it already. And that wraps up this episode's edition of Discussions with Dave. Now for Paint Scheme of the Week. Talking about the 38 for Front Row Motorsports with Zane Smith. We know that one of Zane's sponsors is Aaron's Rent to Own, and they come out with a dreamin' paint scheme. Yeah, it's kind of what you think. It's clouds, there's stars, blue, there's a big cloud on the hood. A little different, but I kind of like the paint scheme. Take a look at that one. Now for NASCAR history time, Iowa. The Cup Series, as we know, started racing in Iowa in 2024. But before that point, it was a regular stop, Xfinity, Truck Series, ARCA. A lot of current Cup Series drivers have cut their teeth at Iowa. And that brings us to one of the strangest finishes in NASCAR history happened at Iowa 15 years ago, August 6th, 2011. Roush teammates of Carl Edwards and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. were dominating in the race, leading a combined 134 of the 250 laps. Ricky pulled away, and as the laps ticked down, he held nearly a second lead as the white flag flew. But in a moment that felt like it was almost out of a movie, Stenhouse was exiting the final corner, and just like that, his engine blew up, spilling fluid and billowing smoke everywhere. His teammate, Edwards, rapidly approached, but was struggling to maintain control in the oil and blinded by the smoke. Mere feet from the finish line, Carl Edwards slams in the back of Ricky Stenhouse, lifting the rear of Stenhouse's car off the ground and ironically giving him the momentum he needed to cross the finish line first before Edwards. Both cars were pretty much totaled. I'm sure Jack Roush wasn't too happy about that after winning the race when his other driver finished second and both cars are wrecked. In the end, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. climbs from the wrecked car, celebrates on the roof, and then rode the safety truck back to victory lane. Ricky being Ricky. Now the drivers to look out for Iowa, starting with ARCA. They'll be running Friday night. Jade Averdezian, Nitro Motorsports car in the 15. Jade should be quick. Max Reeves in that 18. Slew of wins on the ARCA Series and ARCA East Series as well. Got Jake Bowman, points leader in the 20. Gavin Boschel, another youngster in the 25, should be real quick. And got Carson Brown, just talking about him, of course, in the 28. Isabella Robusto in the 55. Tough season with her, not to her doing. Can Isabella get back into the top 3? Don't see why not. Thomas Annunziata in the 70, New Jersey native. Can Thomas get back into victory lane? Great to see the 71 entry from Class Motorsports, Andy J. Jankowiak, Talladega winner. Tristan McKee in the 77, one of those three of the youngsters we were just talking about. Isaac Kitzmiller in the 79 was showing out last week at Flat Rock and the ARCA East series. Isaac was leading with a number of laps to go. Can he get that 79 back up front? Brayton Laster, the pizza man, can he keep that car clean? Last but not least, driving the 89, Bobby Dale Earnhardt. Now the drivers to look out for O'Reilly Series. We start off with the guy that won the race last year, Iowa. That's Sam Mayer. His teammate Sheldon Creed in the 00 should be quick. Jesse Love in the 2 finished second last year. And of course, Jesse's teammate, Austin Hill, in the 21 should be quick. Looking at the JRM entries, I think veteran Justin Allgaier will be leading that charge. You got Ross Chastain, which will be running the 9, Raja Karuth in the 88, and Carson Kvapil, fresh off the win in Indy. I think Carson will be up in the top 5 and competing for a win as well. Corey Day in the 17, we'll be watching him. Joe Gibbs, Brandon Jones, Brent Cruz, William Sawalich. Can William bring back some of that magic he had early in the year at Rockingham? Harrison Burton finished 5th last year. He should be quick. Last but not least, in the 99, Parker Retzlaff. Can he continue the strong finishes he's had this year? Hopefully locking up his spot in the chase? We'll see. Now, the drivers to look out for the Cup Series at Iowa. Start off with the guy that won the first Cup Series race in 2024. He was 4th there last year, and that's Ryan Blaney. And we'll stay in the Team Penske garage. I think Joey Logano, the 22, will be quick as well. We'll stay in the Ford camp. Brad Keselowski was 3rd. Ryan Preece was 5th last year. Look out for those RFK cars. Don't see why those guys aren't in the top 10 again. And maybe even their teammate Chris Buescher too. Moving to Hendrick, William Byron was the guy that won there last year. Can Kyle Larson rebound and have a good finish in that 5 car? I don't see why not. Still in Team Chevy, Carson Hocevar finished 8th at Iowa last year and 6th on the O'Reilly side. Expect the 77 to be in the top 10. Then, of course, those Toyotas, Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick on 2311. Then, of course, Joe Gibbs, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell. Chase Briscoe was 2nd, so he should be a top 1 too. And I think Ty Gibbs as well. Ty's been really good at these shorter tracks. Look what he did winning at Bristol. I know that track can be an outlier though. But still, the results have been there for Ty. And those are all the drivers I will be looking out for at Iowa. Before we get into Tire Diaries, I did want to mention NASCAR is implementing a new stage break procedure starting in Iowa. NASCAR will implement a new stage break procedure for its national series beginning this weekend at Iowa Speedway, the sanctioning body announced this past Thursday. According to officials, the procedure will occur when a natural caution falls within 10 laps of the scheduled stage break. In that event, the stage will be deemed official at the time of the caution. The traditional caution process will then serve as the stage break. I like this tweak by NASCAR. Who likes to see late cautions in stage 1 or stage 2? And, stage under caution. It is what it is. But then you have to run those laps under caution. And, that just kind of eats up the rest of the stage and also eats up laps to start stage 3, right? They're not running that whole duration. So that would solve this. And, when they line up for, a a 3, 2, or even 1 lap shootout that we saw last weekend? Who wants to see that? I mean, yes, I guess it's cool, but in the middle of the race with just a stage win on the line, is it completely necessary? I'd rather just see the full stage 3 duration. I would like that. Good move by NASCAR. I hope this improves the racing, and for the people that complain about the stage racing, I think this will benefit them as well. But we'll find out. Now for Tire Diaries for Iowa. NASCAR Cup Series teams will debut a new left side tire at Iowa. That's going to be paired with the same right side tire that debuted at Iowa last season. The new left side tires were developed following a successful test at Iowa in May with drivers Austin Dillon, Chevy, Noah Gragson, Ford, and Tyler Reddick from Team Toyota. It features an updated construction and a compound designed to withstand the track's high speeds, heavy loads, while still promoting increased tire wear and fall off. Teams on the O'Reilly Series side will run the same tire setup they recently used at Pocono and Indianapolis. The left side tires have also been raced this season at Darlington, Rockingham, Bristol, and Dover. Across the Atlantic, Goodyear Racing Eagles will also be in action in the British Touring Car Championship at Knock Hill Racing Circuit. Now for trivia answer time. This week's question is, who won the inaugural Cup Series race at Iowa in 2024? Hint, we mentioned this in the episode. Answer is number 12, Ryan Blaney. Blaney led 201 of 350 laps in 2024 en route to victory lane that day. Now for Fast Davey's bets. O'Reilly Series. Sheldon Creed, top 3, is plus 360. Cup Series, Austin Dillon, top 10, is plus 350. He had that time to test in May. And typically that 3, of course they get that win in Richmond on a short track last year. I think that's achievable. Now, predictions for Iowa. ARCA Series, I think it's going to come down, of course, between Max Reeves, Carson Brown, and Tristan McKee. I think McKee gets this one done, gets the win in the 77 Friday night. O'Reilly Series, give me the veteran, Justin Allgaier. I think he makes it happen in that JRM equipment. And Cup Series, I think it's going to be another Team Penske car, but not Ryan Blaney. Give me Joey Logano in the 22 to get it done on Sunday. As always, we're sponsored by Magical Travel with Dave, a.k.a. Disney Dave Weichert, my father. He will be able to help you with all your Disney and Universal vacation needs. He can be reached at DisneyDaveW@Verizon.net. And please make sure you follow all the Splash of Gas social medias for midweek and on-track updates. Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube are all Splash of Gas with Dave Weichert. Hope everybody enjoys the summer weather and gets to watch some of the racing from Iowa. Till next time, everybody, Splash of Gas out.